Hey Pathfinders, Coordinator Vogler here to talk to you today about electricity. I think a lot of you know a little bit about electricity. You know, if you plug something into an outlet, it works. It charges your phone, charges your iPad. If you flip a switch, lights come on. But we're going to talk a little more in depth about it today. But before we start, I want to remind you that you need to plug in every day to someone that's going to give you the power to get through the day. You know who I'm talking about. Talking about God. Every day, every morning, you need to pray, study your Bible, ask Him to be with you during the day, ask for the Holy Spirit to come with you during the day to empower you to handle whatever situation comes your way. That's where your power source is. So, back to electricity. Bottom line, electricity, there are groups of positively charged protons, negatively charged electrons, neutrons that have a neutral charge. They all kind of come together, mix around, you get electricity. If you have two groups of electrons, both negatively charged, they're going to repel each other. If you have a group of electrons and a group of positively charged protons, they are going to be attracted. Opposites attract. I'm going to demonstrate that for you. We're going to talk about static electricity. Get Scotch tape from home, something simple. When I'm pulling the tape strips off, they're being charged with static electricity. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how they are attracted or repelled. So I have these strips like this, so you can see them. And they are not, I'm moving my fingers together, but you can see at the bottom, the strips at the bottom are not coming together. I don't know if you can see that good on the video. I have my fingers up here, but you can see how the pieces of tape, they just don't want to come together. So we need to transfer electrons and protons to these strips. How am I going to do it? So fold over the top inch or inch and a half like this. Take the sticky side of this tape, tape it to the smooth side of your other piece. It's all sticking together like this. Then pull them apart. Okay, we've transferred charges. Now they should attract each other because I said opposites attract, right? So let's see. Can you see the bottom there? I'm holding my fingers together. Look at the strips at the bottom. Okay, let's try again. In the middle now, see, they're pulled together. So opposites attract. That's a simple law of attraction and repulsion for electricity. Now we're going to get on to something that I know nothing about. Alternating current, direct current. We're going to delve into that and figure out what exactly that is. So like I said, we're talking about alternating current and direct current. I know nothing about. I brought my friend Jordan. Jordan's an electrician. He's been in the field for 15 years. He's been a journeyman for 3. So he knows way more about any of this than I do. So I'm going to ask Jordan to try and explain to us. So first thing, when we say DC, you don't say DC current because that's like saying direct current. So forget about saying that. It's AC or DC. What is the difference?
So the difference between DC current and AC current is DC is direct current and AC is your alternating current. So alternating current is usually what houses run off of.
Okay.
And then your DC current is really any electronics that run off of battery powered.
So like your cell phone?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that has a battery in it.
Anything that's got a battery is direct.
Yes, is direct current because a battery actually stores DC current.
Oh, okay. So houses, so most things, all these outlets, like how would you know in a house walking around? Like are all the outlets alternating current?
Yes. Everything in your household is alternating current, like I said, unless it's like an electronics. So your stove is an AC stove, but basically like the little clock inside of it that's electronic runs off of DC. So in it, it's got a think it's an inverter that like basically changes it from AC to DC current.
Okay. So we have like AC adapters
Yes.
for whatever, hair dryers or whatever. So those change the AC to DC.
Yes.
So what is the difference? Why is the house alternating current? Why not make it all direct current?
Because AC travels distances a lot better than DC current does. AC, it's more of a sine wave, so it's constantly fluxing.
Like this.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's constantly fluxing from 0 to 180 to negative 180 to 0 again back, and it's doing this.
So it fluctuates.
Yes.
It's current like this. Okay.
Yes, and it's doing that in like a split of a second.
Okay.
And your DC current is basically a steady stream of whatever they're putting out, and if you go miles down the road, you're not going to have what you're putting out at the end of your DC current. At your end of your AC current, you'll have a lot more power there than basically where you started.
So from the electric company to here, it's AC.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to go and see how that happens. So we are going to take a field trip. You guys know I like going on road trips. We're going to look at a couple of things to try and understand this a little more about how we actually get the electricity to our homes, because there is a process behind flipping that switch. So let's go find out. So we're on our way to, there's a substation up the road that I know sends the power to a transformer at my house. So that's where we're going. I was talking to Jordan this morning about this AC and DC, and it made more sense when we talked about like ocean waves. So if you think of DC like a flat ocean where the waves are just kind of ripples and they just kind of, go to the shore. There's not a lot of power behind them. You probably get there quicker, but they just, gently roll up on the shore. Alternating would be more like those crashing waves that go like this. Might take a little longer to get to the shore, but once they arrive, there is a lot of power behind them. Is that correct? So AC might be slower, but there's more power behind it. But
Yes.
DC, the direct, probably quicker route, but not as much power behind it, which is why I guess companies use AC more
Yes.
than DC. Okay.
It's more cost effective.
More cost effective for them. Okay. So, and all these, I always thought they're just telephone poles, but they also have.
The power that comes in from the power company, they send it out to a substation, which then sends you out the power. So on the power lines, the lower cables is your cable that comes into like your house and stuff.
Okay.
But then the wires that are at the top, where they're all like kind of separated by those things, that's your like power that comes from the power company. And then when you see the transformers, it actually takes the power from the lines above and then transforms it to power that can be used in your house.
Okay. All right. We're going to look at a transformer that's out in front of my house when we get there. But, so this substation it's not even, I don't think it's even a mile from my house. Maybe it's a mile. I don't know. But probably some people watching have seen the power lines, going through fields or forests or whatever. They're not very pretty, but they serve a purpose. So this is where I'm going to try and pull in here. And you can see substation. It's over here. We're going to get out and just look at this just for a few minutes. So we are here at the substation. This is about a mile from my house. I know somehow the power gets from here to my house, but I don't really understand what all these things are. So I'm gonna ask Jordan if he can kind of point some things out and explain to us how does the power get from the power company to here to us. So
So from the power company, they send it on these big metal telephone poles, you can call them, I guess. High tension lines. A few other words they got for them. They basically send the power in and it comes down through these coils, and then from these coils it goes into this big transformer over here. From that transformer it gets transformed down to a more manageable power, so it, you know, less hazardous on the roads. If you have down power lines or anything, you know, you don't have this big power, you know, blowing up anything.
So when it comes in, it's this huge amount of electricity.
Yes.
And it has to go through the coils and get kind of downgraded.
Yes,
Okay.
downsized basically.
Downsized, okay.
And they send it out at such a high rate just to basically get it here
Okay,
and not lose a bunch of that power.
okay. And it comes here as AC?
Yes.
Okay, because it's going big distances.
Yes.
Okay, so it goes through the coils, through this transformer. Then from here, what happens?
Then
it goes
from
back
here,
out
they send it out to the regular size telephone poles, the 100-foot telephone
that you
poles
see
that are
along
wood.
the street?
Yes.
Okay,
And then on top of those, the 3 lines that are on top is what is the actual power sent from these substations.
okay,
Then which in turn will go to the smaller transformers that hang off of the telephone poles.
okay.
And that basically powers it down again so you can use it in your household.
So every like neighborhood or street or whatever, so many has these transformers on a telephone pole or in the ground or something.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So basically this thing takes this huge amount of electricity that comes from the power company and turns it into something more usable or more safe, I guess, to send out to homes. So now we've got to go back to my house and see where does this come into my neighborhood to get to my house. So let's go back and look at that. So we're at the top of the street that goes into my neighborhood, and I'm looking out here at this mess of wires, and I'm going to have Jordan explain, because I think our power's coming from here. Did this come from where we just were, the substation?
Yes. So the power lines at the top of the telephone pole are the ones that come from the substation. The ones below that are the ones that come from a transformer and feed houses. Theirs actually comes over and comes down this telephone pole and is fed underground to their house, and it actually hits another transformer near the house and then goes underground again to the house, and there's no overhead wires.
Okay, so we went from the power company to the substation to here, and now we're going to go find out where by my house it comes in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so my house is across the street, and this is where the transformer is. So the pole out there, they ran all the wires underground to here. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then what happens?
Then from here, it's another small transformer that basically transforms it into a useful voltage, which is your 120, 240 volt
That's
regular
in the house.
household.
Okay.
Yes. Panel basically is a 120, 240 volt panel. It basically just transforms it, and they also sent a pipe from here. I would say this is the only transformer in this circle. I would say this transformer is probably doing
All
these
five?
5 houses.
Okay. And then these other thingies, whatever they are, there's a bunch of these. Is that for each house?
Yes, usually, and it's basically a pulling point. So when they pull these wires in, instead of pulling down this 90, they have a hole here with just a straight pipe, so there's less resistance going down a
Okay.
90. It's easier to pull through a straight pipe
Okay.
than a
To a
curved
house.
pipe. Yes.
Okay.
Basically to help us for pulling purposes.
So not all neighborhoods have everything buried like this. Some
No,
you would
this
see the
is-
poles, and you would see the wires going from the poles to the house, like to the sides of the house. So my neighborhood just happens to have everything buried. Why is it humming?
Because it doesn't know the lyrics.
Let's go in to talk some more. So one of the requirements for this honor is to attach a buzzer. You have to use a switch line, I guess batteries. Anyway, this is what Jordan put together to actually make a doorbell, which is a type of buzzer, work. So this is actually what the inside of a doorbell looks like, and we're not going to go into all the little parts other than to say when the circuit's complete, this little lever hits it and dings. Okay, so I'm going to let Jordan explain.
Makes a little noise.
Explain all this. What is this thing?
Yep. So you have your positive end, which is your red wire, and your neutral end or negative end, which is your white wire, and you always put the switch on the positive side. So when it's not, like if I put this here on this, it'll actually light up the light on it. And the power right now is not going through the other side of the red wire.
Oh, okay.
But when we push this, it basically connects these two and completes the circuit for us.
Oh, okay. So if you ring a doorbell outside, you're pushing this.
Which is completing the
Completing the circuit goes to there.
And rings it to let them know somebody's here.
So theoretically, and it took 14 D batteries to make this work.
Because this is a 24 volt doorbell.
Okay.
And usually your house has like a small transformer that transforms your 120 power to 24 volts for this.
Okay.
You can get other buzzers that are less voltage, but I couldn't really find one. The only thing I had was a doorbell, so that's why I had to connect 14 of these together, because these, I believe, somewhere on these right there, it's only 1.5 volts, and I needed 24, so I had to connect a good amount together to get that.
So theoretically now, when you put these together and I push this, that should ring.
Yes.
Okay. Shall we try it?
Yeah. I say we give it a try.
Okay. Whoa. Guess it works. Okay. So now we're going to do something fun. We're supposed to either put together a motor or take apart something and look at the motor in it to see how it works. So I have volunteered my can opener because I actually want a new one. So if we ruin it, oh well. Do not do this at home unless you check with a parent or guardian. Do not run through your house and find an electric something that you're going to take apart. I mean it, don't do it. So while Jordan's doing this, I'm just going to ask him a couple of questions because maybe some of you watching are interested in electricity. Maybe you want to be an electrician. So can you explain as you're doing this? Like what do you have to do? Do you have to go to college?
No.
To be an electrician?
You do not have to go to college, which was a nice thing for me.
Okay.
Because I knew I wanted to work with my hands right away.
Okay. So what did you have to do for training? You went in high school, you were at a vocational school?
Yes.
Okay.
And at that vocational school, they actually set you up on a thing called co-op, which my junior and senior year, I was on co-op. So the 6 days I was supposed to be in shop, I actually went to work the 6 days.
Oh, okay.
For an electrical company. And basically you need a certain amount of hours to get your license.
Okay.
So as an apprentice, you're just trying to build up hours to get your license.
Okay. So you kind of learn on the job?
Yes.
As you go?
That's actually what they call it. It's supposed to be on-the-job training.
Okay. What if you don't go to a vocational school? Say you're a senior in a public high school. How do you somehow do that?
You could basically sign up with, it's not really signing up, I think like some colleges do electrical programs.
Okay.
So you could go to college for it, but you don't really have to.
Okay.
Because you do technically need 600 hours of classroom time, which teaches you the theory behind electrical, teaches you about motors, about how circuitry works, and
math. Do you do math?
Yes, math is a requirement for, actually not really for electrical, it's more for pipe bending.
Oh, okay.
You need to know the trigonometry.
Okay.
So the a squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Okay. And so so you spend your time as an apprentice, how many hours?
You
have to
need
do?
600 classroom time,
Yep.
and you need 8,000 working hours.
Okay, so how do you get those 8,000 working hours?
So every year your company basically has like a list of hours that you've worked for them, just by paychecks and stuff and pay stubs.
Okay.
And then you have to get what's called a green sheet, which basically just signs off on all the hours that you worked for them.
Okay.
They'll put down that you were an apprentice electrician, worked for them for X amount of hours, and then their company, whoever is the license holder, has to sign that piece of paper. And then once you have your 8,000 hours together on paper, you have to send that to Vegas. And there's a place in Vegas that basically checks all that, makes sure that it's all correct, you have enough hours, and they check with the company that the company actually logged those hours and claimed that time to the state that you worked. And after that goes through, it usually takes about 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
After done with that, basically they give you a paper back saying you're good to go to take the test now.
Oh, wow, that's just leading up to taking a test.
Yes. So now that means I'm eligible to take the test.
Okay.
So then I have to go to the testing company, show them the paperwork that's all signed off on, and then they set me up with a time and place where I go take the test.
So how long does all that take, roughly, to do 8,000 hours in classroom time?
So in 1 year, you can accrue about 2,000 hours.
Okay, so it's a process.
Yeah, it's close to a 4-year program.
Okay.
The program that I went through with my union is a 5-year program. I actually had my license, was eligible for it in my 5th year.
Okay.
So I kind of timed out early, but it's kind of expected because you only need 8,000 hours, which actually I heard that they're moving it up to 10,000.
Okay. So basically, if you think college is not in the cards for you and you're like Jordan and want to work with your hands, this is a field you can go into. You just need to put some time into it, whether college or not. You got to commit to it and put some time in, and you can do it. Okay, let's talk about what I never knew what this looked like inside my
So we got this
camera.
taken apart a little bit. And basically on the inside you got your cord that plugs in. You got your black, which is your hot. White is always your neutral.
So explain to me again the hot and the neutral, because you told me earlier. So for like a light, my light over my kitchen table.
Yes. So the hot wire is always hot. So if this was plugged in, there would be power going through your black.
Okay.
And your white is your return, basically, which just returns it back to the panel, which goes back to the power company.
Okay.
It's basically completes the circuit.
Okay.
Because if the circuit wasn't completed, anything that's on that, like electronic-wise, would basically burn out. This would eventually burn out.
If it was always on.
Yes.
Okay.
And the power didn't have anywhere to go to basically siphon back off. Because we're just utilizing what we have here, and then whatever's left over goes back.
Okay. So what are all these little parts?
So this here is your motor. I believe this here is your coil. The black comes in and then it wraps, and there's basically a bunch of wraps around this thing because AC power induces a voltage, and when it can do that, it spins this armature here, which spins these gears and wheels.
Oh,
and
actually
it actually spins the front thing to
this thing to help
spin the can around. Because that's actually what it's doing. It's just spinning the can, and the cut piece just goes into it, and then the can gets spun around and cut open.
Okay.
So yeah, it just spins this little armature here once we put power to it, and then you push the button down, which there's a little lever here, which is like a switch, acts like your switch, completes the circuit. So when you're plugged in, it's not on all the time. You know what I mean? So when you go to push it down and it cuts in, that's when it completes the circuit and makes all this spin. You could actually plug it in and show it spinning if you wanted.
Oh, okay.
So now that we have it plugged in, there's power going through this, and if I push this in to complete the circuit, it spins.
So now I want us to just look at what a drawing of a circuit might look like, say in your home, because we have outlets, we have lights on the stair that you can turn on at the bottom, turn off at the top. So let's look at what that would look like. And we do have a picture here on Wikibooks, and I'm just gonna let Jordan kind of talk us through what exactly we're looking at here.
So on this circuit here, this is like your average household circuit. This is where your fuse would be, or circuit breaker is. That's the symbol for it. You got your hot wire and your neutral wire. Your hot wire is the only one that is attached to your circuit breaker.
So that was like in that other thing you built with the batteries, the hot wire was the red?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the neutral is always white.
Okay.
Always white.
Okay.
No matter what. Your hot connection would be black, red, or blue in 120, 240.
Okay.
And then when you get into a higher voltage where it's the 277, 480, it's actually brown, orange, yellow.
Okay. But
your white is
neutral.
always neutral.
All right, so got that.
Yep. And then this would be like if you had a switch at the dining room table and just switches on that light.
On and on.
Which just breaks the hot wire.
So when you turn the switch on, it would complete the circuit.
Yes, so that little green lever there would close and basically make that a straight line and complete the circuit.
Okay.
Your light would come on, and then basically the same thing when you shut it off, it would open the circuit and
the lights off.
The lights off.
Okay.
Then you have your outlet, which doesn't have a switch to it because your outlet usually has power going to it all the time.
So do these two lines mean, there are two?
These two lines are actually the lines in the outlet.
Okay.
So your right side is your hot and your left side is your neutral.
Oh, okay.
Which on those outlets, it has like a little hole and a bigger hole. The little hole's the hot side and the bigger hole is the neutral side.
So this could be an outlet with just one, you can plug one thing in or two things, or does it
usually
matter?
Outlets, it's a duplex receptacle, so they always come with two outlets.
Okay.
You can have one for one, but it's usually in like things where you have like a higher voltage that needs to be plugged in.
So when you plug something in, does that complete the circuit?
The circuit's actually already completed, so the power is always there.
Okay.
So if you plugged in a light, the light has power, and then some lights have a switch on them. That would be completing the circuit in that, and basically turning on and off the light if you wanted a light
always on,
plugged in.
so that's why you put those little safety things in them, so little kids don't
can't stick
mess
a
with
fork
them.
in there and complete the circuit on themselves. Yeah.
Do not stick anything in the outlets. Okay, so we have a light, an outlet. Now, what is this?
Now, this is a three-way. They call it a three-way because they use 3 different wires.
Okay.
So in this box here for this switch, you'd have your hot and then your 2 travelers.
Okay.
And then the same thing, if this was in a box by itself, you'd have 2 travelers and your hot wire.
So can you maybe diagram and explain that a little more when you're saying travelers and whatever?
So these would be your switches and your boxes. So you'd have a switch here and a switch here.
So like at the stairs, one at the bottom, one at the top.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, the travelers just travel in between each other.
Okay.
And then this would go out to your light, and this would be off of your breaker.
Okay.
And this goes out to your light.
Okay.
And then basically in your switch, it has basically the dotted line is the not complete side, and then the solid is the switch side that is completed.
Okay.
So if the light's off, the completed sides are on opposite sides of the traveler.
Okay.
Now if I was to hit one of these switches, this would switch and make this side solid and this side the dotted line. So now the lever is up, which completes the circuit and would turn on the light.
Okay.
So now basically what this does at either of these switches, you could turn off and on either way would work.
Okay, from the top or the bottom of the
Yes.
stairs. Okay. Okay.
And that's just your average 3-way switch.
Okay. So
setup.
this is just kind of like a basic. In a home, you would have more, I'm assuming, outlets, more stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
Your average house, usually about 50 outlets.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And usually, I think it's like 15 to 20 switches, if not more.
Okay.
But it's usually on different, you have, when we go look at the circuit breakers, you'll see how many circuit breakers are in there. There's a good amount to run your house.
Okay. So why don't we do that? Let's go look at the circuit breakers and see actually what that is. Okay, we are going down to the bowels of the house, the pit of despair. It's the basement. That's usually where it is. I just don't like basements, but that's where we're going. So we are down in my basement because usually the circuit breaker panel is in a corner of your basement, and that's where this one happens to be. And it's got, a whole bunch of different, I guess, fuses?
Circuit breakers.
Circuit breakers. So sometimes if one gets overloaded, it might flip. It kind of turns off. Why would it do that?
Basically, the circuit's overloaded, and instead of, overloading whatever's there and possibly ruining it or blowing up and causing a fire or something, this will just trip, and then there's no power going to it.
Okay.
So it's basically like a safety, so nothing bad happens.
And then
if
basically,
it does get overloaded.
Yeah, then basically you just come down, you look, and you turn it back on. Now ours, sometimes they'll go halfway, so when you come down and look, it's easy to see, where the problem is.
Yeah.
So you can just turn it back on. There's no issue.
Nope. Usually it's sometimes just like an initial surge of power. Like when you turn something on, sometimes like it'll just trip it.
Okay.
It's just a nuisance tripping is what they call it. It basically just overloaded it for a second and it popped.
Okay.
Or, there's a few other reasons. The circuit breaker itself could be a little bad, you know what I mean? And it trips a lot because
So I know,
it's getting worse.
I know one time, an air conditioner we had, if we ran the air conditioner and the vacuum at the same time, on the same side of the house, the breaker would go.
Yeah.
So we would have to, if we want to vacuum, turn the air conditioner off. Or if you want to run the air conditioner, don't vacuum. So, it's a safety thing.
Yes,
Correct?
exactly.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Because if something is overloaded, it basically creates heat.
Okay.
And these wires are only rated for a certain amount of heat. And basically, if that heat builds up, it could cause a fire. So this shuts it off, so there is no chance of fire.
Good. That's what we need. Let's talk for a minute about splicing wires. So why would you ever splice? Would a regular person splice a wire, or is that just an electrician thing? Why do you do that?
It's basically, so if you have like a box and you have 3 different wires coming into it, and say one comes in and is the feed, and then one goes out, feeds an outlet, the other one goes out and feeds another outlet. Instead of sending the power down to that outlet and then running another wire back to the box and then sending the power back out, you make a 3-wire splice in that box, and basically the power that comes in now goes out on one wire and the other wire at the same time.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes, and same with your neutral. And you tie all your neutrals together, so when the power comes back, it all goes back in the same location.
Okay. So to start off, we have these wires, but the insulation on the ends is missing.
Yes. You strip back, I would say, from like a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of the insulation back.
Okay.
And you want to try to get it as even as you can. And if it's not even, you just line them up and chop off the tips if they need to be chopped off a little bit. But they're pretty close to even right now.
Okay.
And when you're making a splice, I usually try to get like the 3 kind of, so 2 and then 1 on top.
Okay.
Makes it a little easier when you go to get them to go together. And and I usually style them with my fingers and then take my pliers and in a clockwise motion, spin them together. And this is making them spliced together.
Let me see if I can do this without killing mine. These things are heavy.
Yeah.
So how tight do you make it?
That's pretty good there. And now on yours where you have like the tops coming out there, what I actually do to make it a little even is actually put them in the pliers, give it a little cut, and now yours are even.
Okay, and then what do
And
you
then
do?
you take a wire nut to cover that splice. So, and if you can see inside the wire nut, it's got a metal piece in there. That's a coil basically, that basically spins over and tightens down on the wire.
Okay.
To keep the splice together and to keep the splice protected from any physical
I just
harm.
spin it?
Yep, spin it clockwise. It'll start to tighten up on it.
It's like twisting it.
Yep.
It's posted.
Yep. Okay. And then that should be good. Now if you tug at it, it shouldn't really pop off. It's.
I did a splice. I'm so excited. Yay.
And that is a National Electrical Code rated splice.
Sweet. All right. Very good. Now can we try your battery cell thing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So one of the requirements for this honor is to build a simple battery. And so Jordan and I did one using plastic wrap, apple cider vinegar, a galvanized nail, and little pieces of copper, which I had one, but I don't know where it went. Oh, there it is, little piece of copper. So we kind of did it thinking, you know, this is a joke, this is not going to work, but Jordan has his voltage meter with him, and actually, you know, we can show you the galvanized, we're not going to go into the whys, it's just the properties of the copper and the galvanized nail, but the copper is positive charge, the nail is the negative charge. And so he put his voltmeter on there to test it, and we were surprised that, okay, that one's not registering. Oh, wait, there it goes.
Yeah, that one's just.
Here, let's try another one. Try this will be a better one if you can see it. So it's registering between 0.8, 0.9. I think one of them was even one volt. So I'm outside. I want to show you guys what an electric meter looks like. So if you have a house, a single family house, you know, usually they put it on the side somewhere where you're not going to be able to see it easily because it's not real pretty. So mine is here at the corner of my house. So I'm going to show you how to read this meter. And this, you have to kind of know some math. So this dial represents, the first one is 10,000s, 1,000, 100, the tens, and the ones. Okay, so you look at it. Now the first one, you have to look real close because at first you would say, oh, it's on the 2. But it's actually not at the 2 yet. So you put a 1 in the 10,000s place. Okay? Then you look at the next one. It's not quite at the 9 yet. So you put an 8 in the thousandths place. You look at the next one. That's definitely not at the 9. Right? So you put an 8 in the hundreds. This one, same thing. It's not at a 7, so you put a 6 for the 60. And then the last one, you put a 4 in the ones place. So this is just an estimate because they'll, you know, the electric company will be able to get better figures. But this is what my reading is. 18,864. So I got my electric bill. And the last reading, the meter was at 18,436. So we aren't, the last cycle was 28 days. We aren't there yet. We're just partway through this cycle, but this will just give me kind of an estimate of what we've used since our last reading. So I'm taking that current reading, I'm going to subtract what the last reading was to see what I've used so far. So 18,864 is what our estimate is right now. The last bill says it was 18,436. So we have used 428 kilowatt hours so far. Okay, so what does that mean? How do you figure out, how much money you owe as of right now? So I'm going to show you what matters. Here's what our bill looks like, okay? And they have all these weird distribution charges plus one set charge, all these are credits. So basically I just added these and subtracted them all, and I got this number, and that's what I'm going to multiply the kilowatt hours by. Okay, all of those added up will tell you, and I need my calculator here. So it's a weird number, 0.12469,142 times 428 kilowatt hours tells me we've used $53.37 worth of electricity so far. The customer charge of $7 is a flat charge, so I add that to it, and that gives me $60.37 so far. But we still have, usually it's a 28 or 30-day billing cycle, and we are only on, let me see, 11, today is, we are only halfway through, roughly halfway. So halfway through, I've used $60.37. Our last billing cycle, it was $122.59, so it looks like it's going to be roughly the same amount used. So it's kind of cool, to be able to go do that, to see what you're going to owe, to see you can also figure out your usage. You'll see probably maybe in the winter months it goes down, summer months it goes up because of air conditioning, things like that. But get a parent or guardian, look for your electric bill, see if you can read your meter. It's math, it's fun. So just as a wrap up to our Electricity Honor, I just wanted to mention something first before I go on about the electricity bill. That just by reading the meter, you can tell how much you've used. There can be other charges from other companies too, so you kind of have to look at the bill because you might have to add more things in based on your kilowatt usage. So anyway, I hope you had fun with this honor. I know I learned a lot. Jordan taught me a lot about alternating current and direct currents, and I can read electric meter. We learned about, how the electricity actually gets to our home. So it's fun. And he did tell you a little bit about if you're interested in becoming an electrician, things you have to do. So it is a good field. It is a good career. But hopefully, you learned something new, fun honor, something that you maybe didn't know before. So keep learning. Keep trying to know more about the world around you.